Google aspartame. You'll never drink another soda again.
And aspartame, if you're someone who, you say, well, something I shouldn't be eating sugar. Again, sugar is a sweetener, is a pretty raw form. It's the simplest form. People want to get a sugar substitute, so they came out with saccharin, causes cancer. Came out with aspartame, which, tell us a little bit about aspartame.
Well, I think the government is pretty high on these things as far as they have guys flying very expensive planes. They won't let fighter pilots drink aspartame because it slows their reactive times.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Absolutely.
And aspartame is equal. Is it used in equal?
Yep.
It's the sweetener used in most diet sodas.
Yep.
It's everywhere. It's probably one of the most common sweeteners.
Absolutely.
So, that's stunning.
It's scary.
I've also heard that aspartame, when it gets over a certain amount of over a certain temperature, actually takes on similar traits to formaldehyde.
Wood alcohol. Yep.
And what does that do to the body? It can't be good.
Yeah, I mean it's like embalming fluid and drinking it. Really, that's what they're relating a lot of the Desert Storm syndrome to.
If people who are dieting are like, I'm in pretty good shape, but what is this really soft, flabby stuff around me? The human body doesn't know what to do with these sweeteners. If you put Splenda, you put aspartame, whether it be equal, whether it be in these diet sweeteners, your body doesn't really know what to. Can it even break it down?
It utilizes our body. Unfortunately, is amazing. Fortunately and unfortunately, because it'll survive on whatever you give it. And so it'll take it, get rid of it. But the big thing that people don't realize is that because you'll see people who are starting their diet, so they'll have supersize it and have a Diet Coke. Well, it's scary, but the sweetener will do two things. It starts a loop that your body wants more sugar, even though that isn't sugar. It wants the sweet. And it'll also crave carbohydrates. So when you kick those on your diet, you won't crave the sugars and sweets as much, too.
So really, you're undermining your diet by drinking diet sodas.
Absolutely.
It's amazing the things. I'm sure there were a lot of these misconceptions. I know a lot of people are like, well, something, I better eat chicken. And they go out and get chicken nuggets or something like that. There are so many. What are the simplest steps you can tell people as they approach what they're eating? You probably said it earlier. People say, well, I'll drink orange juice. Well, something. Why don't you just eat an orange?
Right.
You're missing out a lot. The pulp-free orange. It's like, well, look at the rind of that orange and stuff like that. That's actually pretty good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. The first thing to do is start learning how to cook. That makes you take the time to look at the ingredients that are going in your food. And it's also a social time. Nobody sits around a table anymore. Nobody sits and actually cooks their food. It's a drive-through. There's a lot of energy that goes into preparing your food, and I think it's good energy.
Well, and it's a great point. You talked about the fast food mentality of America, and it's really become a problem. We saw the film Supersize It, and it was stunning. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's all BS," but the reality is that these foods, and look, McDonald's. I don't care what anyone says. McDonald's is a good restaurant, but there are challenges when you go to drive-thrus all the time. Tell me what it is about the food in a lot of these fast food restaurants. And again, we're not single out anybody. Again, all these places have good options. I have good menu options, but ultimately the fast food mentality when you're not thinking and you're eating these things all the time. What's the biggest challenge you run into there?
There's people aren't paying attention. It's fast. They're not sitting down and taking the time to figure out what they're eating. Sizes are huge. Bigger's better. It's it's our country. I think there's so many things with it, and I think it's the preparing time is something. But our bodies were made to hunt and gather. 10,000 years ago, hunt and gather, grab it, gorge, and then basically the body would put on fat and say, well, we don't know when we're going to see our next meal. Well, now our hunting and gathering is throw it in the first drive-through window because they have a little, so you don't have to lean out the window and pick up the next one. And our caloric expenditure versus our intake is just radically off.
We really are at a place where this is, you hear the facts that this is the first generation who will live a shorter life than their parents. And that probably has to do a lot with the poor eating habits we've developed.
Oh, 100%.
Ideally, what would you say? So you're advising me now.
Yep.
Mulaney, let's get your butt in gear. You're okay, but I can make a serious impact on you. Give me an example of what you would recommend that I eat during the course of a day. It's not going to kill me because I'm, depriving myself.
Right. It's chickens, it's your proteins, clean proteins, and your leafy vegetables is the lion's share. Carbohydrates are fine, just don't let them take up half your plate. And if those are the general guidelines, I think people need things more. So I just ask people, what do you need? Why are you doing this? Where do you want to land? What's your motivation? And that's kind of the bigger thing that we stick with, because it's not people saying, oh, another salad. They're realizing they're eating to live, not living to eat. And, you know, I always tell people another main thing is think about how you're going to feel after you do anything, then make your decision. You know, so eating a sundae while you're doing it is great. You're going to feel horrible after. Or going to the gym at 5 a.m., nobody can lie. I do it. It stinks when you go. When you're done at 6:30 and everybody else is just waking up, it's amazing.
See, you know, it's funny. As a parent, I love the 5 a.m. gym because I'm one of those 5 a.m. gym rats as myself.
Yep.
But the thing I love about it is everyone else in the world is asleep at that point.
Yeah,
my family, that's my time.
Yep.
If you can get yourself up, you have to find. And that's one of the other challenges people have. You know, it's like I have a family. When I get out of work at the end of the day, I'll get home and say, honey, I'm going to go for a run. And she'll look at me and say, okay, let me make sure I get this straight. I've been watching the kids all day. They're screaming, they're yelling. You've been at work all day, not having to deal with it. And now you're home and you're going running. You got to find a time that works for you and for everybody else, which I guess speaks to the wellness part of it.
Right.
What else should we be doing? I mean, you know, we talk about food a little bit, but there's a lot that goes into real wellness. You know, you talked about what you do through chiropractic. And again, if you want to check out what Dr. Yalowchuk does, you can go to DeviCenter.com, and that's DEVI-center.com. Your approach to wellness, obviously, when you do the chiropractic, it's the central nervous system, which is surprising to me. I just learned that for the first time. I thought you were cracking my bones only. What else do you do when you approach wellness?
We really look at lifestyle and really get people to be more conscious of what they're doing. You know, when people, I look at any avenue that I can get into somebody's life and improve it is great. Whether they want to get in their bathing suit or whether they're, you know, they need more time to just sit. I mean, I give people homework. You know, go for a walk, read a book, sit down, shut off the TV. You know what I mean? And it's whatever steps they can handle, and then they just check back in. So a wellness is just treating your body the way you want it to run. You know, it's either you treat it like a Porsche or a Pinto, and it'll perform as such. You know, so it's not a huge surprise. But once people get these ideas, I mean, I can bring you through a typical person. Started out, girl about 25, about 70 pounds overweight. She came to me for this. She's lost 4 pant sizes in a month and a half. Now she's running. And instead, you know, she said, I used to get out of work and be frustrated and want to go and, you know, have a bottle of wine or a glass of wine, whatever it may be. She goes, I got out and the first thing that came out of my mouth is I can't wait to get my shoes on to go for a run. She's a rock star already. I mean, I don't even have to. She's recruiting people to start, you know, training them. So those are the things, and you got to find out what wellness means to you too. And it's very personal. It's something that you can define on your own, and all you need is somebody to coach you with it. I think that, you know, people would never open the hood of their cars now because it's not their forte, but I did X diet, I did this diet, and they don't have a coach that knows what's really going on. And you're trying to work with a machine that has 1 trillion chemical reactions in a second. Yeah. You know, it's smarter than us.
It's amazing how the body will react. I mean, in the past couple of years, you know, I told you I've been pretty active for about 2.5, 3 years. I dropped 40 pounds.
Awesome.
I was a pretty chubby kid.
Yep.
You know, not being a tall guy, a little bit of weight gets on you pretty quick. Yep. But one of the great things about when you approach being well, you know, what my approach to it was, I have a program I'm outside of what I do just to keep my head clean, yep, which is a huge part of it. You know, one of the things I say to you is at the end of each day, take a fearless moral inventory of what you did. Tell yourself what you did. Are you happy with the choices you made? What are you going to do if you're not happy about them? Right. That's something where you spend some time for yourself. And you mentioned the running part of it. Running is a great thing, and I challenge people not to run with the iPod. It's nice, it's distracting, but ultimately, if you run without it, you get to spend a little time with yourself. That is some seriously good time.
Yeah, it's an active meditation.
Yeah, it is. When you approach exercise, obviously you're a fit guy. I mean, dude, let me see the guns. That's pretty good. What's your approach to you mentioned running? Are you a runner?
No.
Okay.
I enjoy it. I like to do more burst. I've done mixed martial arts my whole life.
That's a good reminder. Don't mess with the doc.
and we're not talking about a lot of the cage-oriented stuff. I cross-trained in traditional disciplines through my whole life, so it's